We're starting Bez Hashem, a new masechta, Maseches Bava Kama. Aren't we excited? Let us, let us start with Akdama. Very, very important introduction before we even begin the very famous first Mishnah, Avos Nezikin. This masechta, this shiur is Lilunishmas Ovi Moiri, my dear father Menachem ben Akiva, Lilunishmas Sobas Moshe, Lilunishmas Tzila Bas Ben Zion. The Neshama resting in Eden. Before we begin, what's the topic of this masechta? Bava Kama deals is the first masechta in Seder Nezikin, and it deals with Nezikin, with damages. What kind of damages? Either the first few prokim, from the first till the sixth parak of the masechta, it deals with Nezikin that were caused by someone's property. Let's say your bull, the fire that you ignited, the pit that you dug in the street, all these things that belong to you halachically, and they damaged other people. Those things you are chayav, you're liable if they damaged other people with all kinds of conditions. The source with these halachas is in Parshas Mishpatim. Now, the seventh parak, Merubah, is not an easy one, and that deals with theft. All the halachas to do with theft, gzeila, gneva, and that's all different story. The eighth parak deals with a person who damaged, the person himself. He himself damaged another person, and then you have to pay the 5 nezikim that we know about. And then the 9th and the 10th prokim again talk about theft. Okay, so that's basically the outline of the masechta. But before we begin, we have to understand something very, very important. When the Torah says that a person has to pay for damages caused by his property, it's going against the Torah's own rules. What does that mean? In halacha, when a person damages somebody indirectly, a person damages the other person in an indirect way. We already learned in Sanhedrin, he doesn't have to pay. Midoraisa din odom, by Beis Din, only a direct damage, ma'aseh b'yadayim, you have to pay for. The fact that you have to pay for something caused by your dog or by your bull is a chiddush of the Torah, is like an exception to the rule. Yeah. In other words, Achronim have a big question here. Why is it that I really have to guard my dog to make sure that he doesn't bite other people? Please don't tell me moral and universal values, v'chule v'chule. There are no universal values outside the Torah. No such thing. The Torah tells me that if my shore gored, my bull gored, not the one from Horius, he's already sacrificed. Yeah, the bull gored, then we say that I have to pay. It's not so simple. Why? Which avera did I actually commit that I have to pay? Of course I have to pay because the Torah said so, but that's a chiddush. We just have to bear in mind, open a window in your mind, that it's a chiddush of Torah that I have to pay. I'll give you an example. What happens if one's child under bar mitzvah damaged? Science fiction. Your child played with a ball, and he is a very exuberant, how do you say? He had 6 years old, and his ball hit the neighbor's window. Never ever happened in history, I know, but this is fictional. You know, we get very creative over here. Our imagination is fertile. Do you have ikar? Do you have to pay the neighbor? No. You can ask why. You can say that it doesn't sound fair as much as you want, but the answer is no. It's nice. It's suitable, of course, if the person. It's something which is right to do, but it's not chayav meikar adin. There are other solutions. You maybe create like a keren until he's after bar mitzvah. That's a different story. But ikar adin, you don't have to pay for his damage. What my child did is what my child did, and I'm not my child, and my child is under bar mitzvah, and therefore he's not chayav because he's a minor, he's a katan, and I'm not him. He's. I do have to educate him. Okay, that's a different story. Parenting classes, they're all over the neighborhoods about every other person here is a mechanech with 1,500 parenting class, but that's nothing to do with nezikin. So if my dog bit someone, the fact the Torah says that I do have to pay the person who was damaged because my dog bit him, that is a special chiddush of the Torah. Why am I saying this to you? You'll understand soon. Now, before we open the masechta, before we even start let's just read the first line, the very first line of the Mishnah, and then there's a whole introduction we have to know. Ezras Hashem, Arba Avos Nezikin. Arba Avos Nezikin, there are 4 how do you call them? Prototypes. There are four types. There are four main titles of Nezikin: Hashor, the bull; the Abo, that's the pit; the Mav'eh. What's Mav'eh? Strange word. Mav'eh, according to one opinion in the Gemara later in Daf Gimel, Mav'eh is a person who damaged. The Machlokes Rav Shmuel about it. The Hev'er is fire, be'era, burning. So we're talking about four types of Nezikin, all mentioned in Parshas Mishpatim in this order. If my bull created some kind of Nezek, Bo is a pit that I dug in the street very smartly and I never covered it, and then someone's, animal fell inside, and then a Mave is a person who damaged himself, and Hev'er. Now, if you have the chart, it's good. If you don't have the chart, then it's not so good, but we have it here on the screen. So it says the name of, now the show, the Av Nezikin called show has three categories. There are three types of Nezikin that can be caused by a show which Halacha recognizes and are all mefurash, explicitly written in the Torah. Number one is Keren. Keren is the type of Nezik called Keren. Yeah. Then Keren means that literally means a horn, and the animal was goring. What are the what are the toldos? What are the children, the derivatives of this av? Let's say the gourd misbehaved and he started kicking or pushing or biting, things like that. What is the actual common denominator of Keren in all its family, so to speak? Damaging on purpose. An animal that does not do things for its own pleasure, the animal actually does it just to annoy. The animal is behaving crazy in a way that you could say is unexpected. It's not the natural behavior. My dog, he's the sweetest dog in the world. And all of a sudden, this dog starts biting, starts scratching, doing things against whatever the norm, so against social norms, yeah? So those things are considered as Keren. Now, every Av Nezikin has its exception to the rule. Yeah, every Meshugan has his Meshigas. Every Av has its idiosyncrasy. It has its one area that it's exempt from. What is the tour of Keren? Keren is, let's say, the shore gourd for the first time. How much does the person have to pay? Only half. The other one also half. The third one is a machlokes. The third one he has to pay in full. After he was warned 2 or 3 times, it's Shaila, then, you really didn't expect your shore to do it. You did it twice already. Send him to a psychologist, or otherwise what? You have to pay the full damage. But the first few times, you are only paying half the damage because this behavior is out of line. If this was his first time he behaved that way, that's extensively dealt with in the middle of the masechta. This is really just a very, very tiny introduction. Every word I say here is a world to be discovered later on. The second type of nezek to do with shol is shen. Shen means tooth. Let's say the animal, and by the way, they all have a course in the Torah, they're written in the chart, eating. The behemoth, such a nice little kitty, such a nice cow, a nice shepsele. He wants to eat. So he came into other person's field and he ate his heart out. He just had a very nice breakfast and he just ruined the, 10,000 worth shekel of papaya that the other person is growing. I have to give him 10,000 shekels. Why? Because my animal went into his property and I should have been careful and I wasn't. That's a chiddush of the Torah, that even though it's not me and it's not a direct nezek, yet if my animal did that and I was lackadaisical, I was not careful, I have to pay for the shen. What's the common denominator? What's the wider definition of shen? Something that it does for fun, just want to have fun. Let's say the animal, other examples in the Gemara, that's in the third row, the animal was rubbing its back, geschmack. It's rubbing its back against the wall. The animal is a big fat cow, and the wall is Israeli-made caravan, yeah, okay, and now the wall is rubbing itself, such geschmack, fun. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He's not the Karen, that's the other guy. He's a nice guy, this show. And now, boom, the whole thing collapses. because of the rubbing back and forth for the pleasure of the animal, rubbing its back, now the thing fell. Or let's say the animal likes to just have fun like a cat. They like to roll. The animal is just rolling over someone's field. Happens to be that field is full of, 100,000 shekel, produce. So now the animal is doing something for fun, you have to pay, and that's called shen. What's a special thing about shen? If the shen is done in public, which means in Reshus Harabim, if the animal, as it was walking, was eating someone else's schoiro, let's say in the market, like in India, they have it on the floor, the goods, or even in Eretz Yisrael, they have like a stand with what? With fruit, whatever, apples. As the animal is walking, it tilts its head and gives a good bite to a few apples, it's hungry, then the owner of the animal is patur. Now we say that it's the fault of the owner of the fruit that he has it in the street, and the animal owner, in case of shen, is exempt if it happened in Reshus Harabim. Number 3, regel. The third one, this is not 4. This is all 3 derivatives of one av, which is what? Which is the shiur. Regel. What's regel in Hebrew? I think regel means foot or leg, no? Am I right? So then what happens if the animal is walking down the street very innocently and it happens to not stampede, it's just walking over everyone else's kalim? It's an animal, a big cow, and as it's walking along, it breaks all kinds of little nice china dolls or china ornaments or I don't know what, or jugs. What happens then? That's called regel. What's a common denominator of regel? What's the definition of regel? Things that are done as you walk along. It's not even pleasure. Walking is not pleasure. It's a technical thing. It's not doing things on purpose like the angry bull, which is goring. It's not doing anything for pleasure. As he walks along, it's mazik b'derech hilucha. That's the name in the Gemara, derech hilucha. As he walks, the damages they told us are, let's say, didn't do it with his hoofs or legs. They did it with a burden. The animal had burden on its back, and that burden, as it's walking along, the burden brushed against. It's a very fancy, nice China crystal Swarovski creation, whatever, as it's walking along, or the muzzle on it, or something, or its hair, the hair of the animal. Some animals have big hair, I don't know, the mane on the head. You walk with your line down the street. Now, the truth is, the exemption to the rule of regel is also if it happens in the Reshus Harabim potter. Shen, the regel, are only Bershus of the Nizak, because it says outright in the Torah, Bi'er b'sdeh acher, v'shilach es be'iroi, it sent his animals. The person was not careful, and he was playing his flute, whoever, the owner or the shepherd. All the animals are, meanwhile, when the cat's away, the mice play, and the animals went to another person's field, and they had Shen, or they were just walking around creating all havoc, or eating everyone else's produce. Because it's happening in Sdeh Acher, the field of the other person, the person is chayiv. Otherwise, it'd be potter. So these are the three Avos Nezikin of who? Of show. They're all derivatives of show. Now, bo, I'm continuing in the chart and in the Mishnah. Bo is a pit. A pit in a public place. A person dug a pit in Reshus Harabim for whichever reason. Maybe he works for the area, and he dug a pit and he just forgot to cover it. Oh, wow. And then what happens? Now this pit is, someone fell into the pit. The person is chayiv, even though it's a very indirect thing. I dug the pit. You be careful. Don't you have eyes? Can't you look where you're walking? The Gemara actually does mention that svara also. We'll see it later. But Lemaisa, the owner of the pit, has to pay. Now, the pit, again, the broader definition is a creation that the whole creation of bo is nezek to begin with. Now, the tchilas, it's also lenezek. Tchilas boyos lenezek. An animal could be a very nice animal. An animal is not a mazik. A bo, by definition, is something damaging. A pit in the street is nothing but damage. Or the derivatives of that would be, the toldus would be, someone left an object in Reshus Harabim. Someone left a knife, a sharp knife in Reshus Harabim, and the baby tramples over it and cuts itself. B'chule, b'chule. Now, the truth is, the exception to the rule of the kula, the special kula of bo, is, it says shor oy chamo v'nofel atoch shor chamo. The Gemara gives the drasha shor v'lo odom chamo v'lo kelim. Only if animals fell into the pit, then the pit owner has to pay. Only then. Interesting. But if the animal, if a person fell in or an object fell in, let's say with a person with it, then the person is potter. The person who dug the pit is potter. El will be explained in Hashem, only 10 tefachim, less than 10 tefachim is a question, Ezekin v'chule. Now, Odom, yeah, Mav'eh, according to one opinion in the Gemara, is a person. A person, a human who damaged, has to pay. Now, what's the tolda? Let's say a person himself didn't damage, he didn't actually do anything with his own fist or with his own kicking. Let's say spat on someone. And that spittle, besides being a busha, also created nezek. So that's considered the tolda of the person. I'm really jumping the gun. I just have to fill you on all the regular on the details. Now, the special thing about an Odom, we say Odom muad lo'olam. A person, as opposed to an animal, from the first time is considered to be pay nezek sholem. We can't say, oh, he had such a difficult childhood. I wouldn't imagine he was going to smack someone and cut him open. No, chas v'sholem, such a nice child of 15 years old. No, we say Odom muad lo'olam. And also, if he does it by mistake up to a point, a person who's mazik b'shoigeg, as opposed to rotzech b'shoigeg, who has a different din. A person who's mazik b'shoigeg, let's say stretch himself, b'shoigeg, and boom. He basically broke someone's teeth by, I know a person like that. He was playing baseball, and with a baseball bat, boom, somebody was standing behind him, and he basically, all his teeth fell. Oh, he needed, till the end of his life, the person who stood behind, how do you call the guy who does it? Not the pitcher, the one who hits with a bat. The batter, the one who stood behind the batter. I played baseball once in my life, and that was too much. Yeah, the kids are the batter. So now it's a shoygeg. He really didn't see him, but he's chayav, because we say a person should be very responsible to what he does, and therefore he has to pay muad la'olam right the first time, and even b'shoygeg. However, there is a tool for a person. We'll discuss it later. Koifer, I don't think it's going to get right now. We're running a little bit out of time, but I'll say quickly: a show, if a show gores and he kills a person, then the owner of the shore has to pay the value of the person. Yeah, has to pay. Now, if a person kills another person, he doesn't have to pay. He dies. But he doesn't have to pay for the money. Eish, not Eish Torah. Eish Torah is good. Eish. What's Eish? Fire. Someone had a nice barbecue in his backyard, and he was not careful. That's not just an example. That's the example the Gemara brings. A person had Eish in his own domain. He was not careful. He was not careful. Safety first. It was playing with fire. He was playing with fire, and then the fire with regular wind. It was regular wind, ruach mitzuya, and the wind eventually the wind likes the fire, and the fire likes the wind. It's a good shidach. So now the fire went, and with the wind carried the fire to another person's field, and it burned stuff in a different person's field. The person is chayav. What is the special definition or the wider definition of eish? That is koyach acher me'urav boi. Eish alone, when the eish is on your gas stove or your stovetop, your hob, whatever the fire is just wherever that is, fire without wind or without somebody blowing it would not move. Isn't it frustrating when you do al eish barbecue and the fire just doesn't start, right? And you blow it and blow it? The fire needs help, exterior help. It doesn't have its own engine as opposed to an animal. Animal is no koyach acher me'urav. Animals were created with their own internal motor, their own engine, the person's own, and therefore that eish has a special quality when something is mazik with the help of an exterior force. That is called eish. For example, I'll give you a tolda of eish. A tolda of eish would be, let's say I left something dangerous on the roof, something heavy, like a stone, or something sharp, like a knife, and I left it on the roof in a way that's not careful, in a way that is, irresponsible, and you know what happened? Guess what happened? The wind blew it. So now the wind, together with Mr. Gravity, the wind and the gravity, they actually make it fall on the ground. Wow, what a surprise. He didn't know. So then, as they're falling, not after the fall, as they're falling in midair, they hit someone's head. Yeah, someone's on the bottom floor or something. They hit someone's head or someone's property. That's called eish. You hide because it's eish, because it's a combination of your object with the wind that brought it to the damage, to the scene of damage. That is the wider definition of eish. Now, eish has an exemption, eish has an exemption called tomun. Tomun means, let's say someone's fire traveled. The Torah elaborates on what kind of objects or all kinds of produce, wheat, barley, whatever, that the fire found in someone else's field and burnt it. So the Gemara darshans, that is coming to exempt Tomun. Let's say something was hidden. Let's say you had a lot of exception to that exception too. Generally speaking, let's say there was an item, you have how do you call it, a stack of hay, there's a haystack, and in the haystack, someone hid something. He hid his $1 million. Yesh la $1 million. $1 million stock, he prefers that over the bank, inside the haystack, and then what? The person and the fire burnt it, you potter. I'm not sure about the example of $1 million because there are different examples, just giving you a general idea. If it was hidden, it was tomun, it was ensconced somewhere, and the fire burnt it, potur. There's a kosuv. Don't ask me why. Because the whole chiddush of Eish and Bor and Mav and all that is the chiddush of Torah. So the Torah also tells us the pturim. Ad kan de akdomo. Ad kan, this is the intro. This intro now going to start the masechta be'ezras Hashem. Let me just stop for a second. Says the Mishnah, Arba Avos Nezikin. There are 4 types or prototypes of Nezikin. A shiur, ve'abo. The shiur, as we know, is the shiur. However, there's going to be a machloekes. What does shiur mean? According to Shmuel, we'll start soon. A shiur, we'll mention that soon. A shiur ve'abo, the bow is a pit that's in the street or anything that's stationary that belongs to you and you left it there in the street in an uncareful way. Ve'amave, what does mave mean? According to Shmuel, in the Gemara, mave means a shen. Mave means the tooth of the animal. Mav'e means exposed, something that's sometimes exposed, sometimes not. The teeth are sometimes exposed, sometimes they're not. And mav'e means just that. According to Shmuel, shiur means regel. Only the type of damage mentioned by shiur, that is regular walking of the animal. Mav'e is shen, another type of nezik by shiur. Hever means fire. Now, Rav learns the Mishnah differently. Rav says shiur means everything to do with shiur, and Maveh means a person. Maveh means one who wants. Many, many times we send the Gemara, boy. Boy means to ask or to want, to seek. Maveh is a person. Let's follow Shmuel for now. We're going to follow Shmuel's explanation. For now, that's also what Bartanura does. Says, now the Gemara has a question, and Brisa has a hidden question over here, the Mishnah has a hidden question here. Why does the Torah have to mention all 4 types? Why can't we just mention one type of nezek, and from that, I'm going to know all other 3, or all other 5, depends how you divide them. But why can't the Torah tell me, if your shiur gores, you're liable, then I know that the shiur, not just me, my property is also chayv, and I would derive from there everybody else also, shiur, bo, mave, evel, fire, whatever, shmayer, buyer, dyer, liar, whatever, everything I would just figure out. Why do we have to mention each one? Says the Mishnah, lo rea shiur k'area mave, v'lo mave k'area shiur. Shiur and mave, let's assume shiur means regel, and mave means the tooth, the shen. Says the Mishnah, one would not teach me on the other. Why? Because our svaras to say lechan or lechan, one is more chomor, regel. If the Torah tells me, hey, regel, you have to make sure your animal doesn't walk to the other person's field, I would say, that I understand. But shen, I can't control it. It has taive sa'achila. An animal can't control its diet. You want to stop the animal from eating? It's too much for me. I'm not chayv. It's beyond my control. I would say that maybe. Now, the other way around, you can say too. You can say, the shen, I understand, I would stop it from eating. Eating is a whole new peula. It starts to eat, get the muzzle, get the animal, give it a nice smack, and stop it from eating. But walking, from breathing, you also want me to stop the animal from breathing? No. How could I do that? In other words, walking is so natural, part of life. You do it all the time. You walk and you walk and you walk. You can't stop the animal from walking, especially if I have 50 of them. One would say one way or the other. And again, all this will be elaborated upon in Daf Daled. I'm just giving the intro now. But because either this or that, one would not automatically teach me on the other. And therefore, you have to know, both have to be mentioned in the Torah. Whether the animal is eating or the animal is walking, both cases, you have to know you are reliable for what your animal does. Continues the Mishnah. V'lo zeh v'zeh, reliable and liable, both. I should be reliable. In other words, no, I'm liable if once it's done. I should be a reliable person. I should be reliable. I should have been reliable, and also I'm liable once it happened. Thank you. Let's learn the different nezikin of show, which is regel and shen. Why is keren missed? We'll talk later. They're not like esh. Esh is not like fire. Why? The animals have their own force of life. They have their own engine inside of them by the Kadosh Baruch Hu. But the fire doesn't have its own force of life. And therefore I would say the fire is not something that goes by itself. The animal, what do you mean? Stop it. The animal, has the ability to run and likes to run around. You should have guarded it. But the fire, I really didn't know. We had a nice barbecue in honor of whichever day. And what? And now, all of a sudden, the wind started. The fire itself, my nice fire is a very nice, friendly fire. My fire never goes out of my garden. All of a sudden, went out with a different force. It's not up to me. It's the wind. It wasn't me. It's an exterior thing, external thing. Maybe I'm not chayev. Times the Torah says, you're chayev all the same. Even though the fire is a different koach, you're still chayev. Now we're finding a wider common denominator. All nizikin of show, of animals, and fire, they share something in common, that they walk. The fire walks. It doesn't walk on feet, but the fire spreads. Just as the animals walk. The bow is stationary. You came to the boar. I had my nice boar in the middle of Rosh Hashanah. You came to the boar. The boar is not something that walks around disturbing everybody. There is a question in the Gemara actually about a boar. Let's say if it's a rolling stone, whatever. Yeah, not the rolling stone. Do you think about it? Yeah. So let's say you have a boar in the street. That boar is not something that's walking around being mazik. It's stationary. The boar is standing so nicely in the corner, and the person came and hit himself. It's a person's fault. I would have said that in some kind of havamina. So we say, doesn't work. They all have one clear thing in common. Shedarkan lehazik, all 4/6 types of nezikin, they're all mazik. At the end of the day, all these things are mazik one way or the other. V'shmiroson olecha, you have the responsibility, that's a better word. You have the responsibility to guard your property. Again, the question is why? They say, you just have to make sure not to damage others, like you don't damage yourself. Once you broke in that way of the Daldov's Nezikin, you have to pay. If really there was Nezik done and you were uncareful, then the mazik, let's say the mazik has to pay. I mean, for sure he has to pay. Now, let's say the mazik doesn't have cash. He only has a piece of land. What kind of land does he have to pay the nizak, the one being damaged? You know what kind he has to pay? The best of the best. Because it says, Metav Seder, Metav Kalma Yishalim. Let's say the person has 3 fields. One of them very, very fertile in the Galil. One of them is in the Negev, less fertile, I think, besides all the rockets. May they stop very, very soon. And let's say the one in the Galil is worth much more, or he has 10 fields. The one that's worth, the one that's the highest quality, that's the one that he has to pay with. He had to use that as payment to the damaged person. Makes sense also, because other people don't have to give the best. Let's say a person for ksuba gets the worst. A person who just owes money can give also beinonis, balchoiv. In other words, you don't have to pay the best of the best. But if you damaged, it's your fault. And the Torah says you damaged. There's no justification to that. You're a naughty boy, bad. And therefore what? You have to pay with the best piece of land that you have. This was just the Mishnah at the beginning of the masechta. Very, very nice. Baruch Hashem. Says the Gemara, Mazel Tov, Midiktani. Says the Gemara. Midiktani Avos, since it says the word Avos, Avos meaning fathers or prototypes, Michlal, that is to say, the Ikatoldos. Whenever there's a father, there's a Tolda, right? Little children, they called every married man, he's a daddy, even if he's childless. But we know that a father means he has children. If you call those things fathers, must be they have Toldos, must be there are other derivatives, other byproducts from them. Give me an example. What's a byproduct of, let's say, a shen? A shen is an animal enjoying itself eating. What's a tolda? Rubbing its back against the wall for fun. Anything to do with fun of the animal that's damaging inadvertently, that's shen. Oh, here's a tolda, for example. The question is, toldosen kayoitze ben, Are the toldas like the fathers or not? That's a question. Do the halachas of the tolda, are the halacha of the tolda like the father, the same level of responsibility and liability like the father? In other words, the animal rubbed its back, it's as bad, as severe, and requires payment as much as eating, or maybe not. Maybe the tolda is a level less, or even those havamina later, maybe you don't have to pay at all. Wow. That will be discussed, but where is the status of the tolda? Is it as bad, as severe as the father, as grave, or maybe not? And if you don't know what the question is coming from, the Gemara is now elaborating on the question. The Gemara now is going to bring us two different places in Shas where the word av and tolda apply. One of them, it's the same level. Tolda is as severe as av. In the other one, it's not. Let's see. Shabbos, Shabbos. Yeah, tomorrow night, Hashem. What does it say about Shabbos? Now, the very famous Mishnah, Daf and Gimel, I think. Avos Malachas, Albayim Chasarachas. There are 40 minus 1 Avos Malachas. There are 39 Avos Malachas. Okay, very nice. Avos, Michlal Diika, Toldos. If there are fathers, there are children. Toldosen, Kayoitze, Bahen. By Shabbos, yeah, when it comes to Shabbos, the tolda is as severe, as bad as the Av, right? Give me an example of an Av Melach on Shabbos. No, quick, yalla. Yeah, Av Melach on Shabbos is, fine, go, yeah. Choresh is a very good one. Choresh. A person, Choresh, let's assume the Choresh is what? The first one, yeah. The Choresh is plowing. You plow, you make a nice furrow in the ground. You make a furrow in the ground, and that is an Av Melacha. That's what they did in order to get the Samimonim in the Mishkan. Very nice. Now, what happens if you make a hole in the ground, let's say, and it's not for any purpose of, let's say you clean the field. Let's say the field is very nicely straight and flat and even, and it has some pebbles, and those pebbles disturb you because the field doesn't look nice and is not ready to be plowed because those pebbles and rocks are disturbing you, and you remove them. Forget about muktzah, that's another derabanan. Let's say you remove them. Is that choresh? Yes, it's a tolda. It's a tolda. Why? Because one of the definitions in Shabbos of choresh is to beautify the field. The Meiri talks about it. It's a posuk in the Novi. When the sod is full of fields, have you ever been to the Golan and you drive up high and you see the beautiful fields? It's very nice to see. It's all full of furrows and it's a beautiful scene. So to see the field like that, full of nice furrows with no rocks and no disturbances, that is nice. So that is a tolda. It's a rather far-fetched tolda. Yeah, it's like an interesting kind of child. You got some DNA from the father. But that's a tolda, and if you remove the rocks in Shabbos, you have the oraisa, not just the muktzah. Yeah? Okay? So here's an av and a tolda. Tell me, before we continue the Gemara, what's the punishment for a person who plows the field on Shabbos and it tells him, I don't care, I'm plowing the field on Shabbos because I don't keep Shabbos anymore. Chas v'shalom. So that's what's you take the rocks and use them the right way. You take the rocks and use them the right way. What happens if you just remove the rocks? You just did a tolda. Let's say he was warned and he says, Mister, this is Chol Shabbos. He went like, I don't care 3 times. And then he did the tolda and he cleaned the field. Is he also Chayav Skila? Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, he is. Says the Talmud over here. If he did it by mistake, that's a more forgiving scene. Let's say the person thought it was Sunday and he started plowing. He thought it was Monday and he started removing the rocks from the field. In both cases, it's Chayv Chatas. Which animal does ring for Chatas? Yochid is a regular guy. Male, female? Female sheep or female goat. That's from Orius. Yeah, very nice. And if he's a king? Kingy. He means that he got, guys, you have PhD in Horus, and I love you all. So now, let's say, Lo Meshaneh, Av or Tolda are the same. Yeah, and what about Mezid? Loishna Av, Skila, Veloshna Tolda, Skila. That's the saddest scene. Let's say that's B'Mezid. Av or Tolda are exactly the same. Mitzad the level of Chumrah, mitzad the punishment. Uma'ika ben Av Tolda. So what's the difference? If they're all is bad, why is one called father and one called Tolda? Well, what's the difference? La'alacha. Says the Gemara, nafkamina, there is a difference, not really a difference between them, but there's some kind of nafkamina from defining them, grouping them that way. Let's say a person did choresh and zorea, very common. He plowed the field, very industrious guy. The same day, he plowed the field and he also planted the thingies. He planted the seeds. Yeah, he sowed the seeds. Yeah, so now, how many chatos does he have to bring? 2. He forgot about this and he forgot about that. He didn't know that's also, he didn't know that's also. They never taught him that in Hebrew school. He didn't know about these malachas. He only knew not to turn on the light on Shabbos and not drive a car. Many people are like that. He didn't know about plowing the field or sowing. So that he did those two things. What is he chayev? Two different chatois, two different female shepsalach. Inami, shtei toldas ba'adi adodi mechayev. Yeah, let's say two different toldas. Let's say he did a tolda of choresh and tolda of zorea. What's a tolda of choresh? He cleaned the field, and the tolda of zorea, let's say he pruned the tree to make it grow better. It's a tolda of zorea. A child of choresh and a child of zorea, the cousins. He's chayev in each one separately, two different female shepsalach. Aval chada v'chada. Akol chada v'chada. Excuse me, I misread it. Akol chada v'chada. And each one is chayev separately. Ve'ilo ovid av v'tolda didei l'mechayev l'chada. Let's say he did the father and child together. Let's say at the same time he plowed the field. Or let's say he cleaned the rocks and then he plowed the field. How many is chayev? One. Even if though he didn't know about each one separately, because from the same family of melachos, you only have one on the ganze mishpacha, family discount. Yeah, you have one shepsele on the whole. You can do a lot of things. Cooking. You're cooking and you're sauteing and you are frying and you're microwaving and you're steam. I don't know. My wife knows these words, not me. So I only eat them. So you did all kinds of different things of cooking, a whole day of cooking, all cooking contests and Shabbos Lolinu. Then what? You have one. Because as long as just cooking with million derivatives, one thing is chayev derivatives. is So in Mela, what? You have only one. So now I got a good enough kamina. But mitzad the level of chumrah, the type of punishment is as bad whether it's av or tolda. Excuse me, I have to stop for a second to recharge. Okay, now the Gemara asks a question, the end of the first wide line. Ula Bilezer. Bilezer is here the maverick. Here's the other opinion, very big chiddush. Bilezer the mechayev told him av. Wow. Bilezer says no. If a person didn't know about plowing, and he also happened not to know about clearing the rocks, and those are the two things he doesn't know, he's chayev on both of them separately. He has to bring two different shepsalach. That's Rav Lezer's opinion. We're not going out to reasons, but that's what he holds. If so, amai karle av, amai karle tolda. Why is one called av and one a tolda? We just took the nafkamina, out of the way, right? According to Lezer, there's no difference between av and tolda. Not only it's the same punishment, also mitzad the way you count the amount of liabilities, it's also the same, right? According to Lezer, if I did 5 things, 5 averos, I'm using childish terms on purpose. Let's say I did 5 forbidden things on Shabbos. According to Lezer, you always chayev 5. According to Chachamim, not necessarily. If 2 belong to one family and 3 belong to the other family, how many would you bring? 2. Yeah, but Reb Lezer doesn't group them. The more the merrier. Each action chayev separately. So according to Reb Lezer, what's told it? It's just one big balagan. Yeah, there's no families, no family life. Everything one big shtoch. Answers the Gemara. Yeah, the Gemara gives an answer now. Answers the Gemara. No, there is a difference. Hach dehava b'mishkan chashiva karili av. The one that was in the Mishkan. There are 2 versions here. In the Choshev Mishkan, the one that took place in the Mishkan is called an Av. The one who is not in the Mishkan, the one that took place in the actual Mishkan, let's say Harisha. You may ask, where was Harisha in the Mishkan? It was preparation for the Mishkan. There's questions whether it happened in the Midbar by miracle, that's in Chulin, or maybe in Mitzrayim, or something that conceptually has to be done if you build a Mishkan. You have to plow. Plowing was done in the Mishkan, but clearing the rocks, lav dafka. I don't know if they had to clear the rocks. It's not something that was always done. The land was clean to begin with. Yeah, and therefore things that actually happen in the Mishkan are called av. Yeah, let's say cooking or baking. There's a machlokes which one is an av. That took place in the Mishkan where they cooked the samimanim, the colors, the dyes. But if you do some fancy also, some kind of roast meat, that was not in the Mishkan. Yeah, and therefore that's the same level, same chumrah, but it's called differently. It's just a definition for the sake of knowing what's in the Mishkan, what's not in the Mishkan. That's all. In any event, we see one thing here. One thing we should siphon for the whole story, and that is, we see the one place in the Torah, a very famous place of Av and Tolda, the Av is as severe as the Tolda. Everyone agrees to that. Reb Lezer, Rabbanan, everybody knows that if you did Av or you committed the Avera on Tolda, it's the same level of Chumrah. That's one thing. Now the Gemara will bring the other kind of Av and Toldo to the scene, and then we're going to see what's the story regarding Nezikin. Now let's talk about Tumas. Gabi Tumas Nan. We find the very last line of Daf Beis Amud Aleph. We're already finishing the Amud. It says about Tumos. In Tumas also we have Av Tuma, the beginning of Maseches Kelim, Tnan. Avos Tumos, the fathers of Tumos, are Hasheretz. If a person touched a Sheretz, that's a dead. What? One of the 8 animals, some of them reptiles, some rodents, 8 specific animals mentioned in the Torah, in Parashat Shmini. And then what does it say? Asheretz, if you touched it, Asheretz, moved it, whatever. V'shichva zera, shichva zera is sperm. V'tmei mace, a person who touched the mace, a person, not the mace himself. The mace himself is called what? Avi Avos Satuma. The person who touched the mace is Avatuma, is as bad. Avos Satuma are really things that generate Tuma, that bring Tuma. There's a lot of them. Nida, Zav, Shichvazera, Ziva, Metzoiro, and these, and Sheretz, Nevela. Nevela is the dead corpse of an animal, kosher, non-kosher, of a bigger animal. All these things are those that Avatuma, they produce Tuma. They're the generators of Tuma, okay? The Tmei mace, now the Tmei mace, even though he got the tumor from the mace, the dead corpse is so tummy that the person who touched the mace is as bad as a sheretz, as a generator of tumor. The one who touched the dead person's body, the dead human being's body, he touched him or was in the same tent, oil house with him, is the same level of like the first row tumor, is equivalent to those who generate tumor, like sperm, like a dead rodent, like a dead animal, which is nevela, v'chulei. In any event, now those things, what happens if Avatuma touched something, either food, drinks, or vessels, or human beings, also another human being, what do we say? The all Tomeh. They all become Tomeh. They touched it, they became Tomeh, they became defiled, they became Tomeh, okay? They're called Rishon Latuma. The one who touched the Av in the hierarchy is called Rishon Latuma, the first one of the recipients of Tuma. Do they generate Tuma later on to a Sheni Latuma? Yes. Yes, there's also Shlish and for Tuma. We'll ignore that now. So we have Avatuma, the first generator, creator of Tuma, source of Tuma. And there's Rishon Latuma, which is a Tolda. That's already a Tolda. That's already a byproduct. That's already a Kindlach. That's already a child of that. Okay? Says the Mishnah in Kelim, Daf Beis Amud Beis on top of the page here. So the same Lavka Yoitza Behen, the Avatuma, the first generator, as opposed to the second one, they're not the same. The Ilu Av Mitame Odom Vekelim. And Avatuma, let's pick one. Let's talk about the dead rodent. Let's say a koach. Koach is called in English monitor lizard. Big, disgusting creature. I hope it's politically correct to say that disgusting and scary. Okay, so let's say you have this big lizard called koach, monitor lizard, and the monitor lizard is dead. We're all very sad. And now the monitor lizard, someone touched it. Then the person who touched the lizard, the monitor of the computer, sometimes Thomas, sometimes Dor, depends what you use it for. So now the lizard died. You touched the lizard. What are you in halacha? Rishon Latuma. He's Av. The lizard who's dead is Avatuma. And so if that lizard touched, or anybody touched any of that dead body, whether it touched another person, a person, or he touched kalim, he touched vessels, let's say your china plate, or he touched what? He touched oichlim v'mashkim, food or drinks, they're tomeh. He generates tuma to whoever wants, almost anything, not everything, okay? So, ad b'tam odom v'kalim. The Lutoldos, let's say I went to an exhibition, in the middle of the exhibition of the reptiles, the monitor lizard died, Baruch Hashem, and I touched it. In the middle of touching it, I'm Rishon Latuma. Let's say I touched another person, my friend. Is he Tomeh? No. Let's say I touched the Kli? No. Only if the Rishon Latuma, if I touched food or drinks, they're Tomeh. In other words, the Rishon Latuma is one level below. It does not generate Tuma to a person or vessels, only to food and drinks. That's a basic rule. Let's see it inside again. Dilu Av, the father of Tuma, the generator, even Odom Mekalim, everything. Dilu Toldos, the one who's Rishon, the derivative, the child of the Av, Oichlunu Mashkin Metame. They make the food and drinks Tomeh. These are all psukim in Pashas Shmini at the end, all big stuff over there. Hochomai, question Hochomai, what's the story over here? We have nice, fair representation to each case. In Shabbos, we see what Av and Tolda are the same. In Tuma, we see the Tolda is less than Av. What's the story over here? What's the story over here? Do we or don't we say that the Tolda is like the father? Omar of Papa depends. Yesh men kayotze ben, yesh men lav kayotze ben. We're not going to details now because Rashi doesn't either. But Lamaisa, the Gemara later on will see that some told us you're chayev. If the animal rubbed its back against the wall, let's say it's a told of shame that's chayev. If an animal kicked and didn't gore, in the Torah it says goring, and the animal kicked like a crazy, a horse, lolinu. Yeah, then what? Chayev. Other told us of the Av Nizikin are potter. Which ones? You will not be able to sleep tonight because you don't know which ones. Yeah, but that we'll see in a few days, not even on Sunday. Quick, let's continue. Tono Abonon, 5 lines, the 5th line from the top. Tono Abonon. Gimel Avos Nemu B'Shor. There are 3 fathers, all belonging to Shor. A Keren, the Hashen, the Regel. Let's revise. A Keren, what's Keren? I'm tired of talking. Keren means a horn. And that means what? What kind of nezek? On purpose. Lahazik, laachisnik. There's a mezi, there's a mumar laachis, like we learned in Orius. The animal goes crazy. It does things not for mere physical pleasure like eating or rolling. It does something out of anger. And it does it out of line. At least at the beginning was not expected. That's called Keren. What's Shen? Shen ezach. Normal behavior. There are 2 normals, Shen and Regel. The 2. Shen is basic taiva. We will also discuss tashmish of the animal. If it's mazik, well, tashmish, seriously, that's another question. Taiva, regular taiva, eating, drinking, rolling over for fun, is a nice guy. The animal just wants to have fun. And as it's having fun, it's mazik. That's shen. What's regel? Transient, he said? Trampling. Okay, that's a nice word I was looking for. Trampling, he was walking on something. Walking, not even hano. It's very, very normal in the line. What? It is stepping on the kalim. Oh, the Gemara does say sometimes it's not so. And the Gemara will discuss the case later on, if I remember from years ago, that sometimes it's not so clear to know the animal did it on purpose or not. Let's say the animal is walking on kalim. It's walking on not on eggshells. It's walking in your fancy. You have this like nice hippie kind of marketplaces with all these nice little ornaments and the cost, and the animal is walking all over them. So if it's walking innocently, that's called regel. It's walking as it's walking along. The animal is too big and too stupid to notice them, doesn't care. But sometimes, let's say the animal does it on purpose. It looks like it's on purpose. Let's say it's like crouching, boom, sitting on it. Sitting normally is regel. Let's say the animal is very nicely, boom, goes and sits wherever it wants, and by mistake, there's something underneath. I'm sorry, I didn't know. So that's called regel. It's just sitting down. As it's sitting, a chimpanzee, you train him to sit down nicely and have coffee, and you put it online. Yeah, the chimpanzee is sitting, not knowing that it's sitting on an expensive picture of Van Gogh. I don't know, something. Yeah. So then what? You have to pay. That's called what? That's called regel. And regular behavior, which is not even extra pleasure or extra anger. So that is called regel. And the Gemara, one second, the Gemara is going to give sources to all 3 Avos of the show. I hope you enjoyed this shiur, and I hope you stay with us for the entire masechta Mirz Hashem. And now I'm hearing the questions. Thank you very much. Have a great day, great week. Be'ezras Hashem.